Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I-20 male work on dispatch. It's a little bit different where I live. We have one emergency number nationwide, and they contact firefighters after to help. Kinda like a pandemic status without the drugs. So this one guy calls, let's call him John. John is known for causing havoc in the comm lines. Rude, loud, and most of the time he is pissed drunk. Having a crap show today, multiple units on calls, understaffing at the time. This guy comes out demanding a transportation. He also do non-emergency transports, physiotherapy, things like that. Screaming at me, calling me a jerk after I tried explaining cabs are cheaper. He calls us because no one is willing to take this guy anywhere for free. He won't pay for the transport like usual. I told him that we are not a taxi service, and if he wants transportation, he needs to schedule like everyone else. I will call 911, your bosses, which they are not by the way, and say that's an emergency. You can do that, sir. You are a free citizen. He hangs up and I get a call from the emergency hotline requesting an emergency service to this location. I tell the 911 dispatcher that this guy is a dangerous individual and my brothers at arms will need help. My brothers get to the location and ask me via radio, why is there the police? Not any police, the intervention team. And why are they arresting John? Since the call was for alcohol poisoning. Apparently, John wanted an Uber ride from the cops, even trying to enter the driver's seat. They beat him for refusing to cooperate and for punching a cop. He was hospitalized with a few broken bones and for his alcohol addiction. Good luck, John. We love you. Backstory: I worked at this hotel for over 2 years and was one of 2 people left that went through the training when our hotel changed hotel franchises. During this training, we were told about certain rules the company had. The cast of the story is a manager who is a front desk manager. He was only here for about 46 months at this point. And there is me. I'm a nice guy unless you are a bully or entitled person. A few others I will mention as we go through. One afternoon, I was scheduled to work second shift 3 to 11. I walked in and post AM front desk co-workers looked like they had been massively crying as their makeup was smeared. My manager looked quite pissed. I asked what's wrong, and the manager answers, we have a major jerk as a guest. This guy is the highest level on the rewards for the hotel chain. He is very demanding and wants free upgrades, free this or that, and screams anytime he has an interaction with the staff. This guy has made every department call me complaining about him. Now, this guy just came to the desk and screamed at these 2 co-workers until they both were crying. These 2 ladies were fresh high school graduates and were very sweet and innocent people. They loved helping people and did not deserve this treatment. As he's explaining this, I look up this guy's room details. Once my manager finishes explaining everything this guy had done, I saw this guy's information and I had a smile from ear to ear. I replied, didn't you see that he's an employee of a different hotel? Yes, but so what? First off, while you travel as an employee, you are required to behave and be respectful. It is in the fine print on the discount form. I grabbed his form and showed it to the manager. Failure to be respectful can lead to having your employee discount suspended or permanently revoked, and even get you terminated. You need to call this guy's hotel and ask for the GM. Then explain to him who you are and what this guy is doing. I looked up the hotel phone number and called the hotel and then handed my manager the phone. My manager, after his call ends with the GM, he has an evil and satisfying smile on his face. His GM is steaming mad after I described all the stuff this guy has done. Main switchboard phone rings. I answered, hello, thank you for calling the hotel name. How may I direct your call? I want to speak to the entitled jerk's room, please. I replied, absolutely, sir. Have a nice day. Transferred the call and looked at my manager and said, with a sarcastic tone, Someone wanted to talk to the entitled jerk. Gee, I wonder who that could be. Manager continued after he stopped laughing. The GM gave him his personal cell phone number and said if I have any more issues at all to call him immediately. I'm leaving the phone number next to the switchboard if you need to call him. I told the manager your revenge is done. Now for my revenge. Manager wide-eyed, oh crap, what are you going to do? Me smiling a very evil smile. You'll see. I picked up the phone to make a call. Hello, Hotel Rewards customer service. Yes, I would like to report someone using a reward account while using an employee discount on his stay. The customer service says, he can't do that. I replied, I know. I'm calling to report him. I gave her the guest reservation number and rewards member number. I continued, I bet anything if you dig through this guy's history, you will find all his stays are probably at employee discount. The customer service guy says, I'm starting a ticket to have this guy's account investigated. I replied thank you, then hang up the phone. The manager watched as I then removed his rewards number from his stay. My manager had a huge grin on his face. That was awesome. I explained, oh, I'm not quite finished with him yet. It is time to go spread the news to all the departments. He is no longer a rewards member. I made a new key for his room without concierge access. I walked around to every department. As I explained why I was stopping by, everyone had the same reaction as soon as I mentioned the guy's name. Oh god. Now what about this jerk? I finished explaining how he was no longer a reward member and if he gives anyone issues to call the front desk immediately, and his GM already probably tore him a new one just a minute ago. Everyone was so happy at this news. I finally went to the concierge room and used the guest's new key to void his current key. Then I walked into the room and explained the information to the evening concierge. She cringed at the mention of his name. After explaining she would not have to deal with him again, and asked her to leave the morning person a note about this guy not allowed in the concierge room anymore, she was very happy. While I was gone, evidently the manager explained what we did to the 2 a.m. front desk ladies. The minute I got back to the desk, both my front desk co-workers all came up to me and gave me a huge hug and thanked me so many times. The manager said to me after the other co-workers went home, do me a huge favor please. I replied, sure, what's up? If I ever piss you off, please come tell me so I can fix the issue. Later that night, the entitled jerk comes to the desk hat in hand, politely saying his key doesn't work. I replied, oh, so sorry about that. Let me make you a new key. And the best fake smile I can muster. The aftermath. Next day, I checked his rewards account and it's now suspended. Check back next week. Sorry, the account number not found. About 10 years ago, I had a metal working project with 2.5-inch stainless steel tubing, and when it was done, I had several feet left. Made a walkway, guardrail, and some other stuff, including some large garden arches with plant shelves for my wife. The wife posts him on Facebook, and a random woman shows up wanting to borrow one for a wedding arch. We don't know her. She saw the pictures and contacted my wife about them, and my wife told her they were too big to move around, but she showed up anyway. First, it's borrow, and I tell her they are too large for a pickup truck, and being stainless steel they are quite heavy. It took a forklift to put them in place, and they are anchored to the ground. She says she can get someone to pick one up, then wants me to get a forklift to load it. Nope, I have to cut it loose from its anchors and re-weld it when it gets back. And I never intended to move it. I have to move large landscaping stone blocks just to get to it. She's not having any of it. She must have that arch or it will ruin her baby's wedding. Then she wants me to paint it white. The point of stainless steel is you don't have to paint it, ever. And it's a pain in the butt to sand, prep, prime, paint, polished stainless steel. And afterwards, the stainless steel will need the sanding scratches polished out again, which I'm not about to do. So, a hard no. Begging, tears, accusations of permanently damaging her daughter, screaming, and so on. My wife tells her she can have one made. Cost about $4,400 and have it painted someplace else, but she doesn't want to pay for the arch. We are supposed to lend it for free. Crazy lady goes dark for about 2 weeks. Then I get a call from my wife. The crazy lady is in a driveway with other people, a pickup truck which the arch won't fit into, and the county sheriff also. She's holding a receipt for the arch's post with a sale price of $200, which was obviously home printed. No business name, no business or home address, no signatures, and is expecting the deputy sheriff to enforce. Deputy lives about 2 miles up the road and I've known him 30 years. Her family/friends are all arguing aggressively with my wife. The deputy is in between, and the crazy lady is screaming. I told the deputy what had gone on. Then he talked to my wife while I held the entitled nutjobs off, and the deputy finally kicked him off the property with the help of 2 more deputies, and the first had to call in for backup. I can't tell you how the wedding went, but it wasn't under my wife's arches. Nope, I am not moving 4,000-pound stone blocks, tearing up my yard, getting a cutting torch to cut the arches loose, getting my fork truck from my shop out to my home and back again, and reversing the process to lend the arches to anyone. As a side note, she did give ideas to some friends. There have been 2 sets of wedding pictures under the arches, but the arches stayed right where I put them, and no crazy momzellas involved. In college, I had a French teacher that assigned us these grammar workbooks to do every night in no particular order, and brought the book in to show that we had done just something. So when I was out of time, sometimes I would just make random guesses and correct from the back of the book. When the virus hit and we had to do some of our classes remotely, we sent him photos of our workbook instead. My teacher said nothing until the very end of the term, and he called out every single student for plagiarism and ultimately failed all of us from the class, took away our honors, and threatened to suspend some of us who had prior infractions. I was furious. All of the other students accepted the infraction. Suspensions were revoked if we all redid the entire workbook. That would take weeks, but I thought it wasn't fair and I was ready to fight. They seemed to be more concerned about plagiarism rather than not doing the work because it was ungraded. I talked to them about the infraction and said, "How can it be plagiarism if I'm writing in a book where the answers came from?" They said because I didn't cite my sources. I threatened to take it further, but they blackmailed me and said they would consider all of my other infractions and I could potentially get expelled 2 weeks from graduation. I said okay, and I had a plan. When I went to redo all of my questions, I just put a proper citation next to each question from the back of the book. The chancellor called me in and said even though it wasn't respectable, technically it was passable. Because I cited my sources, so it was no longer considered plagiarism. Got my honors taken but passed the course and still got my French major, which I could have done more, but that little bit felt good and saved me hours of work that the other students had to do. Edit. I think there is a misunderstanding. I didn't copy the answers on the back of the book. I half-assed it when I was out of time and corrected the wrong ones, which is literally what the teacher told us to do. We were allowed to do our work with other students and correct our answers. It also was ungraded, so it had really nothing to do with my course or academics at all. Plus it was multiple choice, like how would you even know? The fact that I had presented work as my own within school grounds was enough for plagiarism. Pretty much had nothing to do with my course because he didn't actually grade it. Just trying to make light of an old story, please don't hate on me. This professor was so unbelievably mean to students he didn't like that I really hated him. I'm 3 years out of college, so it's not really relevant to me anymore. The previous infraction were dorm chick stuff like having a tapestry and so on. At one time I had to go to the hospital. There wasn't anything to actually expel me on, and threatening expulsion was out of pocket, but back close to graduation was not worth it. The professor assigned an unbelievable amount of graded work on top of his workbook, so breezing through was something that everyone in the class did. He even told us that the workbook did not matter, just to come in every day having done something about it. A couple of years ago, I was waiting tables at this restaurant in Jersey. This story took place during our slow season, and it was pretty competitive between all the servers. Every server wanted the better section and the bigger tables since our overall tips were lower than usual. We didn't pool tips. It got pretty cutthroat at times. I was doing okay financially, so I wasn't as money hungry as everyone else. I personally get time anxiety, so I have been late to things. So if my shift starts at 5, I'm walking into work at 4:45 to get settled, then clocking in at 5 to get to work. My coworker Kayla, however, had a different attitude. She would walk into work at 5 on the dot and clock in, then head right to the bathroom to put on her makeup, which took her about 15 minutes. In most days it was slow enough that it wasn't an issue, but it still wasn't right. Call me old-fashioned, but when your shift starts at 5, you should start working at 5 and not apply makeup while on the clock while you have other duties to take care of. I've never had to deal with putting on makeup, but it just seemed to me that she should have taken more time while getting ready to come to work to put it on. I always let it slide because I am non-confrontational, but it bothered other co-workers. However, management never got around to addressing it. One day I walked in at my usual time, and as I clocked in at 5, I saw Kayla clock in as well and scurry off to the bathroom. I roll my eyes and walk over to the host station where there are 2 people waiting. The host asked if Kayla was here yet, because she was up for her first table in the rotation. I told her she was getting ready in the bathroom. The host rolled her eyes and went to tell her she was going to get sat. We all knew she was putting on her makeup. We weren't going to hassle her if she was on the toilet. I didn't hear the exact back and forth they had, but it took longer than I had expected. The last thing I heard Kayla say was, "Just switch my section, I'll take the next one, I don't care." So the host sauntered back to me with a grin saying, "You're up for this table. Want to help me set it up?" I'm confused. Set it up? It's only 2 people. Oh no, it's a party of 14. This is Mr. Moneybags' niece and nephew. The rest of the family is on their way. For context, Mr. Moneybags, not his real name obviously, but it would have been awesome if it was a very wealthy and a well-known man in our area. He made his fortune in landscaping and then moved on to real estate. And believe it or not, he was one of the few affluent people in our area that wasn't an entitled jerk. Me and the host set up the table in record time just as the rest of the party arrived. Everyone began to sit down as I greeted everyone, and just as luck would have it, I gave Mr. Moneybags a handshake as I locked eyes with a dolled-up Kayla as she entered the dining room and she realized what she did to herself. The next 2 hours I waited on my 14-top table as Kayla waited on 2 tops. She actually had a table not tipping at all, which is awful and I don't condone. But in this particular situation, oh well. And of course, she kicked herself again when she looked over at my table's check and saw the fat tip I was getting off my big table. Oh well, get ready for work before work, not at work. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.